Well, I thought this was interesting. Yesterday, when I drew the day card, as I do, regardless of whether I work early in the morning or have a day off, I had wanted to do a video on the Five of Swords because I've noticed, I've found it interesting that fives, I had the Five of Wands back in December on the 30th, so about a week ago. Following day, I had the Six of Swords. The next day wasn't a sword, but it was a six. We had the Heirophant on the 2nd of January, a 5. We had the Eight of Swords on January 4th. And then yesterday, of course, we had the Five of Swords on the 5th, interestingly. So I noticed a theme. There have been fives and swords quite a bit in the last week since I've started this. And I wanted to do a video on it because I like this card. And then thought, well, maybe next time. And sure enough, today, next time, very next time, same card. So I get the impression that maybe I wasn't the only one that wanted to put this little guy on camera. I think he had something to say. Now, as I'd written in my posts yesterday on Instagram and Facebook, which you can find the links for below in the description if you'd like to follow, and I encourage you to, because I do post there more often than I do here, just scheduling and of necessity at the moment. But as I had said yesterday, the fives have sort of a getting out of the comfort zone appeal. When we get to the 4 phase of a suit, it can refer to our relatively stable abilities, but it can also draw the outline for a really nice box that we frequently get told we need to think outside of. With the 5th sword, we can cut through that. Just like it seems to cut through some cloud cover and reveals to us, in the form of the pentagram, a more clear understanding of oneself. The green in the card represents growth, and you'll notice it looks fairly light. So it refers to growth that has already occurred. And just like a plant, if I saw a plant this color, I'd know it was probably time for watering if I wanted to save the plant. So the plant had already grown, and so have we, so have you, so have I. But you see some room for deepening of that growth. You see how the outline of the circle around the pentagram almost disappears in some places? The self has been well defined for the moment, although it's begun to fade along with the circle. Start watering yourself. Get out of that comfort zone. And here we'll get into some of the supporting cards for my interpretation. Get out of that comfort zone that we see in the 4. And I don't want to talk bad about the 4. The 4, I mean, look at that little flash, that brilliant beaming flash as the 4 swords come together. When that happens and we become very self-aware and very action-oriented and receptive to ourselves and our intuition, we can do a lot. And often we do. But at some point in the 4 phase, we slow. Because we do, as human beings, as inhabitants of Earth, our bodies, our minds, our ideas have been subject to that entropy. And so we slow. It happens. But then, with the One to re-propel us, we see wisdom, we see some additional receptivity to our own intuition, and we see our sovereignty, we recognize that, we remember that, and our brilliance. Again, we have a bit of a flash here. When we apply what we've already learned to this, when we apply this momentum to our somewhat slowed but wizened condition, then we can blast through some of those clouds. We can slice through the veil. We can examine our condition in our station in life versus where we want to go, and start moving forward, start watering ourselves intellectually in this case again. I find that one detail in the One makes for an interesting contribution. You see all these stars? Reminds me of a Crowley quote that every man and every woman is a star. That includes you. That includes me. Sometimes we just have to apply that wisdom to our actions so that we can excel once again. And I mentioned analyzing or reviewing, your position in life and how far you've come. And oftentimes when we do that, we find, I haven't gotten as far as I wanted to, darn it. Don't let that stop you. It took me 3 decades to start doing something I enjoy and that speaks to me. Out of fear for how other people would view it, in my family and otherwise. Better that it should come at all than never. Ideally, maybe it would have been sooner. On the other hand, I've learned a lot along the way that I can apply to this. And I imagine the same holds true for you. So don't get down on yourself. Don't get discouraged. And speaking of learning, a not so friendly and welcome card among readers and readies alike. The 3 of Swords. Looks painful, doesn't it? Does not look like a good experience, but it holds some things in common, first of all, with the 5. In fact, you'll notice that in the 3 and the 2, we find something similar. Cutting through cloud cover. We initially become aware of ourselves as beings with potential beyond nature. We see that in the blue rose. When we become aware of ourselves and our potential, the blue rose represents something beyond what we have, beyond what we've been given naturally. The human mind operates with intelligence far in excess of what we need to survive, and nature usually stops there. Now, how we got to this place remains up for debate and speculation, but you have to recognize your potential beyond mere existence and survival. You can do so much. You listen to me on a cell phone or a tablet or a computer, probably thousands, sometimes time zones away from me, because we have these devices, we have the intelligence and the understanding to manipulate things to make this possible. We do not need it to survive. In spite of what Apple, Verizon, Sprint, and some others, may want us to think. We can survive without these, and yet we use them day to day, and we have technology beyond comprehension for some people. Even just a few generations ago, we have potentials beyond the natural. Not all of us will build new patented devices, but poetry and writing and painting and sewing and art and thinking and intellect and mathematics go beyond the need to stay warm, to stay relatively healthy, and to eat. We all have something beyond the natural. And why the blue rose? Because the blue rose doesn't exist in nature. We know that. So we have that, and we've cut through that cloud cover to see ourselves as something greater. And we can add that to the 3, which also cuts through the cloud cover, but oftentimes in a much different way, a painful way. But we need those experiences. Lost love, defeat, the loss of a family member or friend, to our everlasting enemy, death. It hurts. It pierces us. But having been here, we know we can get through a lot. And we know we can get through this. And when we combine these and arrive at the 5, then we realize we can get past that naturally occurring stagnation that we all face from time to time. And go forward. Learn from the experience. Apply it to the future. And become better people for it and how we handle it. And then, of course, we have the Major Arcana, 5s, the Heirophant, and the Prince of Darkness, as so named in the Black Flame Tarot, more commonly the Devil. And I won't take a huge amount of time on these, but I will mention we see again a repetition of that beam, that glimpse of the self that we have. Here we have a willingness to transform. And look at all that purple, all that wisdom you've learned. Do something with it, right? Or you'll keep repeating the same pattern. Carl Jung, I believe it was Carl Jung, said we have 2 options. We can go in a circle, 2-dimensional figure, and that just keeps bringing us to the same problem over and over and over. In that instance, we haven't applied wisdom. Or we can do a spiral wherein, as human beings, we'll probably have similar experiences, and that will involve problems of a similar nature to ones we've had before. But we'll see them as we come around to them from different vantage points. And in that case, we've applied wisdom and we've freed ourselves. You'll notice in the card here, we've got some imprisoned beings here up at the top. But then we have one who rises above himself. He uses his intelligence. He uses his wisdom. And speaking of use, a verb, lots of red here, lots of action involved in this. But he does it, and he frees himself. Kind of like the devil figure in mythologies. And we've talked about that on this channel before. Not such a bad guy in a lot of ways. Work to free yourself. Apply the things you've learned. Take up a new application for your intellect. Learn some math. Learn a science. Learn a skill. Learn rhetoric. You may ask, well, why would I learn algebra? I don't need it. I work in customer service. It trains your mind to think differently. It trains your mind to do things it hasn't done before or in a very long time. And the simple act of thinking outside of the box can lead to creative tendencies and abilities for application in all aspects of life. The Five of Swords wanted us to hear it today, again. I encourage you to think about it and the cards related to it throughout the day as you begin a new week, and see how you can work on beginning a new little part of you. As always, please feel free to subscribe. I encourage it. Check out my other platforms for more regular updates, and use that comment section as it was intended for discussion. I look forward to hearing thoughts, insights, questions, and also, as always, if you would like a more personal, insightful, individualized reading, custom and tailored to you, please contact me through one of the links below, and we'll set up an appointment. Until then, my friends, keep transforming.